Hi everyone. My name is Marc, like Marc. I'm from Toulouse, France, and I'm working for a company called Contenus. And Contenus, maybe you know this company. It's the team behind Traffic. This is the reverse proxy, which is quite popular, I think. So today, I'm announcing. In fact, we are. Sorry for that. Yeah. Today we are announcing Yogi. So Yogi is yet another Go interpreter, and this is a project, an open source project that we have just launched this week. So it's just the beginning. So, okay. So the main motivation for this Go interpreter is to make Go program extensible without having to rebuild or redeploy them. There are already many interpreters on top of Go. You have Lua, you have PHP, maybe not PHP, but you have JavaScript, Python. And in fact, if you want to run on top of the Go runtime, maybe the Go language could be the best candidate. In fact, if you look further, if you are able to use the Go language as a typing language, in fact, you are just unifying the low-level scripting language with the high-level scripting language, sorry, with the low-level implementation language, and you have you can just avoid the burden of syntax switch when you go from a low level to high level. And if you ever have some slow code in interpreting mode, in fact, you just have nothing to rewrite or to modify to make it faster. Just compile it. Okay, so what are the goals and priorities? In fact, we want to provide a Go dynamic interpreter, which is embeddable, simple, secure, and fast enough to be used as a plugin engine, which is the main, in fact, the main motivation for Traffic and for Contenus. But of course, it could be also useful to run executable scripts and to have an interactive command line interpreter and so on. But the thing that is interesting for us is really we target production use. So the main priority for us is therefore to fully stick to the Go standard. We want to implement the full Go standard specification, and we waited to announce this project to have reached this target. We also want, in fact, to put the security and robustness over performance. So, and after all, that's not a big deal if the interpreter is a bit slower than compile mode. Everybody understands that. But at least, in fact, if we want to use it in production mode, at least it has to be secure. So this is really something that we target. And also, an interpreter, a Go interpreter, is worth nothing if you can't use, in fact, all the stuff provided by all the libraries and the precompiled code. All the precompiled stuff which is provided by the executable. So the thing is really to be able to interact with the runtime and to run this precompiled mode, this precompiled code with no friction. And finally, we want to do the reverse. We want to be able to plug dynamically scripts into the precompiled code exactly as if it was precompiled, but just interpreted. So we have done some performance stuff and some benchmarks. And the thing that we have done is we wanted to look at the use in a particular context in the distributed systems. And in fact, we have just tested a middleware, which is an off-the-shelf middleware, gzip handler. It's done by the people from New York Times. And just compresses HTTP response. So it's done using interfaces, and it's plugin on top of I think the HTTP, yes, in the HTTP server and things like that. And what we have done is we have run this gzip handler both in compiled mode and interpreted mode, and we have found an overhead less than 10%. So, which is really interesting, and for us that makes it really nice makes it a very good candidate, in fact, to use it as a plugin engine. And the reason why the gzip handler is not the reason why we don't have so much overhead is that, in fact, the JZip itself is provided by the standard library. And here, the compiler is really there to provide the glue language. And this is really where the interpreter shines. If you can do the code in fact, the code which is not bound by performances, if you can run it in interpreted mode, where performance is not an issue, and then just offload the intensive CPU task to the optimized precompiled libraries, that's the best you can do. Okay, so I have one more minute to run now real code. So the first code is to see how difficult it is to run this embedded interpreter. So here I have everything in main, and then in main I create an interpreter context with new, and then on this interpreter context I eval a string which prints hello world. So run it, and it prints hello world. In fact, it took 2 or 3 seconds to run because, in fact, the engine has just recompiled everything before running the interpreters. And we can do the same, exactly the same. And here, what I have is slightly more complicated. I have I'm using now channels and Go routines. So run it. Yeah, and that's it. It runs. And skip the last example, and that's it. So it's a brand new project. I think it's a great addition to the Go ecosystem to have a new Go interpreter. There is already some traction just after 3 days, so it's promising. And feel free to go to the GitHub site and to provide feedbacks and contributions and any help that you can do. And thank you very much for your assistance and being here. Thanks.